Welcome to the Head Shepherd Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO at Next and Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, a big thanks to our three fantastic sponsors. Allflex, part of MSD, perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia, offers one of New Zealand and Australia's largest livestock product portfolios with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Heineken is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Heineken team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. ProA Livestock Equipment have been delivering industry-leading livestock handling systems to producers across Australia, New Zealand and beyond for the last 25 years to improve on-farm safety, efficiency and profitability. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now, it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to the show. You're Ferg as always. This week we feature James Starling from down in the southeast of South Australia. We're talking to James about a PDS that we've recently got underway, being funded by Meat and Livestock Australia, and it's all around optimising heifer selection. We're aiming to demonstrate and understand the value of the genomic tools in helping beef producers select their replacement heifers and decide which of those heifers get to stay in the herd versus those that get sold on or joined to a terminal. So we've had that project just kicked away. We've got core sites around the country, and James Starling is one of those. It's a really fantastic project that's enabling us to use the best tools. So we're bringing together, depending on which breed it is, the relevant genomic tools. So those heifers' ability to use the DNA to get genomic breeding values on those heifers. We're then indexing those breeding values to help work out or weight the traits according to the objective of the individual breeder. And then we're going to follow those heifers through and look at their production and performance through the next couple of years after that, and just sort of line that up with what the genomics was telling us and really look into that combination. So, yeah, it's a great opportunity to bring James Starling onto the show today to talk about his involvement in that project, but also to talk about his approach to farming as a business, coming out of the financial world for a couple of decades and then coming back to the farm. He has a slightly different view than what many that have maybe stayed on that farm. And really great chat with James. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. We'll get underway with that one now. Welcome to Head Shepherd, James Starling.
Thanks, Ferg.
Good to have you, mate. And good to be chatting about this project with you. Before we get into heifer selection, we just really keen to understand a bit more about your enterprise there different enterprises there, really. Sure.
So I'm based near Kingston on the Limestone Coast, southeast South Australia. So about 300 k's south of Adelaide, 150 k's north of Mount Gambier on the coast, 450 k's west of Melbourne. We are self-replacing Angus herd, and we run merino sheep for prime lamb production, first cross lambs really specifically as well here at Tulang, fifth generation on this farm. And 5 years ago, I returned from a career around the world for 20 odd years in finance and bought another property over near Colac in Victoria with just cattle on it. So we're split in those two geographies about 400 k's apart. And I bought the place walk in, walk out with a spring calving Angus herd. We were autumn calving shorthorns until 5 or 6 years ago. But the bank manager said, well, if you're going to buy another place, you better pay attention to that Angus premium and get on board. So if you can't beat them, join them. And that's what we've done.
Yeah, fair enough. Was that a complete swap out, or had you just sort of been putting Angus over the shorthorns? Or?
A bit of both. We, certainly have culled the shorthorns pretty hard. We're completely out of them now. It's all black. I do have a few, the older females that are crossbred or 3/4, but we did sell some and buy other Angus in. And then obviously the new place, we bought that with pure Angus on it already.
Yeah, righto. Oh, excellent. So, we're talking about the Optimised Heifer Selection PDS project today, and you're one of the core demo sites, which means we'll be doing a bit more measurement and trying to understand, trying to perfect that heifer selection process, or not perfect it, but improvement if we can. Maybe just run us through to date, what heifer selections look like and what you're sort of hoping to move towards?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a bit like the 40-year-old apprentice, given I came back to the farm at 40 after 20 years in finance. So it's been a lot of changes in the last 5 or 6 years. And, part of that has been getting my head around what sort of business I want to run and, what the target markets are and what sort of article we need to produce for those markets. And, I can't say I've perfected that. I changed my mind a little bit and, swap around and, sort of want to go one way and then get some new information and want to change it. But we're trying to hit a couple of different markets, I suppose. We don't want to have all our eggs in one basket. There's a lot of grass finishing programs around here. So we're dedicated to producing weaners, and I've looked at the numbers of different enterprises, what we could be doing, trading cattle, producing weaners, growing them out, being a bit more vertically integrated. And I haven't found the golden goose yet. I think every enterprise has had its day in the sun and its day in the doldrums. You ask traders who bought very expensive weaners in 2022 what 2023 looked like, probably a bit ordinary for them. And, same for us, going through some tough seasonal conditions and some ordinary prices through, the latter half of 23 and 24 and into 25. So, there's no, I don't have the right answer. It's just a mix of what your country does best, what you like doing best. But for us, we've settled on, producing weaners. We've got our stocking rate up to the extent that we've got so many breeders, we sort of have to move them on as weaners. And so our target markets are, the local weaner sales in Narracourt and Mortlake. And, we're trying to produce cattle that have the capacity to go on to feedlots and grow out, but also, probably hedging our bets a little bit and having the sort of animal that can finish on grass. And of course, you aim for two different targets. Maybe you miss both, or you want to be adaptable and flexible. But if you specialise and all your eggs are in the wrong basket, that can bring you undone too.
Yeah, well, I guess all beef cattle enterprises, independent of the market they're chasing, fertility becomes sort of no calf, no money. So getting that calf fertility up is going to be pretty critical.
Yeah, exactly. You spend a lot of time bringing growing heifers up and joining them, and it's a while before you see some cash out of that. So it's pretty important to get your selections right. It's about the efficiency of your farm. So I think that's one of the motivations for this program is to help put some objectivity around selection. Previously it has been, you look at weight, you look at feet, you look at phenotype, and you have a bit of an idea of she's too early maturing, too late maturing, or whatever. But I think it's very important to put some objective data around it. Certainly running a sheep enterprise on the side of the cattle, we're probably a bit more advanced in our use of data and genomics as well with that, and I've definitely seen the benefits. And so it's, Rome wasn't built in a day, and we're pushing pretty hard the last few years to make progress. But time to apply what we've learned in sheep to the cattle business. Yeah,
righto. We might diverge into sheep briefly. So are you self-replacing merino, or you buy merino and put a terminal over them, or?
Yeah, so we're effectively terminal. We buy merinos in and put a Border Leicester over everything. And, so I moved back to the farm 2019, after a economics degree, or 3 degrees actually. And, came back to the farm. And the question I had, I spent 20 years managing money and, trading assets. And the key to that success in that area is figuring out what fair value is for whatever asset, and I traded thousands of them. Find out what fair value is, try and buy it for less and try and sell it for more. And when I came back to the farm, I could, we didn't know what a sheep was worth. You go to an auction or a private sort of deal, and you didn't know the guy might want $200 for a ewe. Is she fantastic and cheap at that, or is she terrible and expensive at that? If you don't know their performance, you've got no idea how to value them properly. I think the best exam question I was ever asked is, what's the difference between price and value? And when you're a trader of financial markets like I was, that's in front of your mind 24/7, 365. What's fair value? What's the price at? And the difference is the profit that I can make. So I see it the same for the sheep or cattle business. We want to find those better performing genetics, better performing animals that are priced correctly. And of course, when it comes to us selling them, we hope that we can demonstrate the value of our superior breeding and get paid a bit more for it. The pressures we have on us down here in the south with land values and cost pressures generally, we can't be complacent about earning that sort of return. And my career took me to 6 different countries around the world across soft commodities, metals, energy, financial derivatives. And I look at where we are in Australia. We have a structurally high cost of production, particularly in the south, and I think that forces us to chase sort of premiums. We have a competitive advantage in quality. We don't have one in cost. We're not going to have one in cost. And so we want to chase that quality. And how do we identify it? We need data. We need objectivity. Everyone says, hey, I breed a good cow or a good sheep. But, unless you can actually define what good means and put some data around it, it's not as, you're just talking. It doesn't mean as much.
Yeah, no, exactly. And yeah, great combination of skills there to bring into the process, and something that, I guess I stand in front of lots of farmers, and I actually did last 2 nights. I've asked, probably 60 farmers what their cost of production was, and no one could tell me. I'm guessing you know exactly what yours is because you're coming from that.
Look, in their defence, I would say, I've looked at it over the last few years, and you can pick a number a mile wide, and it's been at both ends of the spectrum. It wangs around a bit, and the biggest driver of it is the amount of production. Really, we have a lot of overheads to absorb, and especially if you borrowed some money to buy some dirt, the best way to get your cost of production down is to get your amount of production up. But it's all well and good to be gung ho and go hammer and tongs, but when a drought bites, Mother Nature doesn't always play the game with you.
No, no, you can't control it all the time. I guess I don't know what your thoughts are, but I always kind of think that it's as important to know the process and kind of know what's driving cost of production as it is to know what the number is. Like it's the levers you can pull or the dials you can tweak that change it are the ones that's the kind of thing that matters, and know when you can push up the cost side of the equation because it's going to be valuable, and when you have to hold it back because it's not going to be valuable. I guess it's as much about doing the numbers as what the number is, I reckon. Yeah,
and absolutely, you really want to understand that sort of granularity of what's driving your business and dive deep into it. And when you talk to your bank manager about taking on some more debt, if you've done that sort of homework, it puts them at ease that you really understand what is driving your business. Because at the end of the day, much as we love farming and like being out in the paddock, it is a business, and you do have to know your numbers and keep them work. You can't be sustainable if you're not profitable. So it definitely helps. But I can tell you I found farming a challenging business compared to finance, because we don't have a lot of control, and of course we spend 11 months of the year we spend money producing something that we really sort of we're like a 5-year-old kid going to the lolly shop and saying, hey mister, how much are you going to give me for these? Whether you spent $150 a DSE producing them or $50 a DSE producing them, Mr. Market is going to tell you what he's going to pay you at the end of it. And I've worked in other ag markets, trading grain, trading cotton, and other commodities, base metals, energy, and the price risk management tools are so much more sophisticated for those markets than for what we have in protein. we really are at the mercy of not only Mother Nature but the market too, because we don't have futures and forward contracts and pools and things like that, and it certainly can make it tough. When your cash flow crunches because of the market or Mother Nature or a combination of both at the same time, as we've been through.
Yeah, no, good point. I guess, and that's probably hard to answer, but like in that price fee value equation, do you see a future where like your weaner calves or steer calves are going onto a market, and I guess we've got their genomic profile of the herd up there with them, and kind of the bulls have been there to use them, so we kind of know if we can actually put some numbers around what that value is likely to be for that person who's going to buy them to feed them, or the heifer equivalent.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we need, and I think that's where we're trying to be. And I have had that experience with a few years. We sent cattle into Ranges Valley, and they don't take any cattle. They wanted to see the bull team. They took me on because they'd had progeny of the cows I bought at Colac. So, and they did pay for it, which, was enough to prick my ears up and say, well, this is, not a bad way to go. But, there's been some changes there, and, I don't know sort of what the future holds for that, given it's been bought by another big Australian company. But I think that's a great model for particularly us down in the south with the sort of cattle we breed. We need those avenues, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. We've got to look at the consumer and say, MLA, and there's some smart people out there. Peter McGilchrist is one who's really identified, what the consumers want, what they're willing to pay for, and so we sort of know what we need to do, but we've got to produce the article first before we get paid a premium for it, so that somebody can build a brand around it, whether it's Ranges Valley Black Market or Tees 36 South or 1,000 Guineas, tried it with Shorthorns. But we have to have the product, we have to have reliability of supply and consistency of supply and the quality and the quantity, so that a JBS or a Tees or a TFI can build a brand that can go out into the market that consumers, can trust and come back for. And, it doesn't have to be the Rolls Royce. It's fine to be a Mitsubishi, because not everyone eats, marble score 9 Wagyu every meal, every day of the week. But when they want a special piece of meat, they just want what they're paying for. And there's times where they're willing to pay, 60, 70, 100 more dollars for a steak. And I've done that myself a couple of times, and, been absolutely overwhelmed with how good it is, and, don't feel ripped off at all. And then there's other times you go to a pub somewhere and you pay $20 and think, I still wasted my money because it was that bad. I think we're getting better at it. And having lived, in the States, in Europe, what the MLA have done with MSA grading, that is terrific. And it really does help us, and it's helped our consistency and the eating experience for the consumer. And it's been fantastic for our industry and very valuable. But it's just about drafting, target your market, know what sort of genetics and what sort of management processes are going to hit that target market, and just be consistent about, the production system and, and the breeding that goes into them to try and, make it a commodity that's going to hit the target every time, and take, the natural variation out, which is a lot easier said than done, of course.
Yeah, it is. But if you don't try, you're never going to get there. So
that's exactly right.
It's got to be done. So let's just get on with it. I guess if we think about the project, so it's a PDS project, which means it's supported by Meat and Livestock Australia, and we're very grateful for that support to enable us to do the work. I guess to date, any sort of, any learnings so far? We're only really getting started, so that's probably an answer that is probably no. But, I guess what are you hoping to learn? What are we hoping to find out about your cattle particularly, and about the kind of processes? Yeah,
it is early days. We've had one day in the yards with the 130-odd heifers in that cohort. We took the TSU sample, and that's off for Genomics. Haven't got it back yet. We weighed them and did a foot, claw, and angle score and a docility score. So yeah, it's pretty early days, but I guess choosing a market is hard enough because it changes, and what the consumer wants today is different to last year, is different to 2 years' time or 5 years' time, and fashions change faster than we can change the type of animal we produce. But you sort of need a reference point. If you decide that you're heading for Sydney, it kind of helps to know if you're starting from Melbourne or from Brisbane, whether you want to head north or south. So I think the genotyping is going to put some objective data around where we are right now, and then we're going to try and refine our target market, bearing in mind that we want a little bit of flexibility and not put all our eggs in one basket, but figure out what markets we can hit the target most reliably, and the combination of those two is where we are and where we want to be will help us choose the right sort of bull team to put over those heifers to help us move in the right direction. I suppose the other complicating factor is being self-replacing. I've got basically what I consider two herds within my herd. I've got my maternal herd that produces heifers, and then my terminals that go on to the market. And the sort of bulls that I put with my maternal mob, obviously we're focused more on balancing those maternal and the carcass traits, and those bulls are generally a bit more expensive as you're trying to optimize for more criteria. And then your terminals, they are cattle that maybe their feet aren't quite perfect, or their phenotype or whatever. And for those, I'm not worried about the maternal traits of the bull. I'm just looking for the right carcass traits to hit the sort of market I want. So yeah, you've got to. I think that's important to do both if you're self-replacing, because you're trying to hit the sort of bull that produces you a heifer is different to the sort of bull that is going to produce a feedlot steer.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know. Not sure what you see around the traps, but I see a lot of people just doing the one job, like trying to buy those expensive bulls and breed that one type of cattle and not use obviously some of those animals are going to leave the farm in a terminal fashion, but they don't actually think of it in the way that you've just explained it. I don't know if you see much of it. And supplementary question, what sort of proportion do you run? Like, what is it, 40-60, or what's that look like in terms of the numbers that would be going to a terminal?
Yeah, it's a bit over half, 55-45, something like that, is sort of how it works out. I mean, if you think about it, you probably need 15 to 20% replacement heifers every year, to cover your preg-tested empties, your dries, and any older cows that are culled for age. And you also want to put a bit of selection pressure on the cohort of heifers you breed. You don't want to have to keep all of them. So if let's say for round figures, you're aiming for 20% replacements, and you need at least 15. You can put that means you've got to keep 3/4 of what you breed out of the maternal mob. Yeah. So you need 40 to 50% in your maternals and your terminals, and I guess that probably makes drafting a bit easier. And I do it after weaning. I'll go through every cow on the place, on both places, and sort them out. And you sort of say, well, here's your top half, here's your bottom half, and a couple of cows go either way. It sort of works out like that. But you sort of need that many anyway. I have dabbled in sex semen last year, and I'm about to wean those spring drop heifers, and that was partly motivated by the need to rebuild after we had to destock. The last couple of years down here, Kingston and Colac have both been bloody dry, and we are not used to that in sort of 600, 700 mil rainfall country, and getting 250 mils for the year for 2 years in a row. Really change. You can have your. I think I'm on about Plan Z at the moment. It's Plan A, B, C. It's all gone by the wayside. So I knew we'd need to rebuild, and so part of the motivation for trying sex semen was to breed extra replacement heifers, and yeah, hopefully that'll work out well. But they'll get weaned in the next month or so, and pretty happy with what we've done there. And that's another tool in the kit to AI, particularly your maternals. And I think it'd be very interesting. I did go to a talk arranged by one of my animal nutrition consultants down at Casterton 6 or 8, 9 months ago. And there's a fella there who joins 1,000 cows, doesn't own a bull, and everything is AI, 3 or 4 rounds. And I think, if you think about the premium you get for a steer versus a heifer, and you're joining 1,000 cows, you could probably really refine your maternal herd down to 25 or 30% and join those to sex female. And then you've got your replacements there with still a bit of selection pressure, and join everything else to a sexed male. And, if you think, what's a steer, $200 or $300 more than his sister, that over 1,000 calves, that can pay for a fair bit of labour and AI.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not diving into it just yet, but every time a bull breaks down or gets hurt fighting, it definitely makes me rethink it.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all the things that as technology improves and things happen, and even if embryo technology sort of goes the way it's going, maybe you're throwing in like male embryos as well as male, or rather than male semen. Who knows what the future holds? But I think that's that's a really, really interesting space to optimize what the market signals, rather than just taking the 50-50 and 50-50 which are maternal. Yeah, so I think that always made a lot of sense to me to have a terminal side. So I assume that terminal half of some older cows going into there. Anything kind of not cull worthy goes terminal. Is that how it works? And then the cull worthy goes
exactly
there. Yeah.
Yeah, try and the maternal herd's going to be have better feet, have the right phenotype for what I'm chasing, and it's trying to be consistent with that, and not you don't want to be chasing rainbows and changing your breeding objective every year, because that's a pretty hard one to nail down. But a few older cows and anything that's just a bit off spec, on the sort of the wings of the distribution in terms of maturity pattern or phenotype. Just try and breed from the best cows and keep them consistent, and leave the terminals to just produce beef.
Yeah, I guess what's going to be interesting in this project is how genomics can help inform that and make that a little bit more efficient, that drafting gate. And equally, I think the thing that's kind of interesting to me is following that through and saying this one genomically was amazing. How's it gone on? Has it done what it said on the label and actually produced what it should have? And I think it's that. Well, I'm interested in that combination of phenotype and genotype. I think there's probably cattle that, just because they're early born out of an older cow and already a heavy heifer, they're probably just going to be phenotypically useful in the herd regardless, but they'll be just as useful in a terminal herd, which is good in your enterprise. And then there's other cattle that are late born crap, and they're never really going to make it regardless of what the genomics tells us. So, but then there's a middle ground, which I think is where most of the probably gain is to be made, is in that middle blur, whether you don't know if they're kind of good or not because they look okay and they just look like the other ones you're about to send to the terminals or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, there's some obvious keepers that are gonna do the job, and the old saying, you don't want to let perfection be the enemy of the good. If they're good enough to make you money and stay in the herd, you may be splitting hairs and doing extra unnecessary work to split those hairs. But there's some that are going to be obvious keepers, and it could be just they had the luxury of being born to a mature matron or whatever it is. And there's others that, despite their genomics are no good, and they'll never make weight for joining. And, you want to keep your joinings tight and early and all of those things that we know help us, make money and have an efficient cow herd. Despite the genomics, they, by accident, they've been mismothered or, whatever it is. And we all know those things happen, not on my farm, but on some farms, accidents happen. So You're right. It's the art and the science of breeding. I personally have a bit of an issue with a lot of the old wives' tales that I hear, I think particularly in the sheep industry, long ears and long necks and all sorts of things. It's like, well, the one the preg tester tells me has twins, she's the most fertile because we don't need old wives' tales. We can measure things in 2026. And I found it in my old world trading derivatives. The old wives' tales just don't stack up to the tiniest bit of rigorous data analysis. It debunks so many myths, and it's definitely true in agriculture and sheep and cattle production. So we want to put a bit of objectivity around it, and that's what I'm excited to see from this program. Is exactly where are we? I'm pretty confident that the data that I've collected, in sheep previously, all I did was reinvent the wheel. It corroborated exactly what the ASPVs predicted, and anyone who's been using it for long enough won't be surprised by that. There's a reason that the genomics work. There's hats off to all the stud guys out there. The amount of data they collect, on their herds is phenomenal, and it is a hell of a lot of work. And some would say, recently the stud sales, bull sales, they might be getting paid for it, but it is a bloody lot of work. So, they're doing the whole industry a favour by that data collection, and we are all benefiting from it. I don't think there's many people. There's people out there, but there's not that many people that'll go to a bull sale or a ram sale and buy genetics without figures. And so if you're going to do that on the bull side of things, it makes sense to start doing it on the heifer side of things too. The cost of production, is real, and we certainly have cost pressures on us from every angle, it seems. And another $40 or $50 for a DNA test is another whack of dough that you've got to spend. But if you factor that over, particularly for your heifers, I think you've said it. There's some obvious keepers, keep them. There's some obvious duds, get rid of them. And those heifers in the middle that you're not sure which way to go or whether they should be maternal or terminal. Maybe you just sample those. And once you've done it for 4 or 5 or 6 years, you'll have a whole herd profile anyway. So that's one way to manage it. But to get back to what you said earlier, you've got to be focused on costs, but what you really have to be focused on is margin. And if spending $40 helps you make a couple of thousand, you ought to be doing it. And look, the cash flow crunch has been real for us down here, but why save $40 if it's going to cost you a couple of grand? You look at 7 or 8 calves out of that heifer over her life, knowing which ones to get rid of and which ones to keep. You don't have to add many cents a kilo over 7 or 8 calves over that time, and especially the heifers that stay in your herd to get that $40 back.
Yeah. It's a very good way to look at it, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out and what we learn from, and what we do know. As soon as you start measuring stuff, you start learning. So it's always, and as you say, there's some amazing theories out there, but nothing is better than a bit of data to tell us what's actually going on in the paddock.
Yeah.
That rooster's pretty keen at 4:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. No, great, James. Great to have a chat, and really looking forward to seeing what we learn out of this project. Again, it's our PDS project, producer demonstration site, which is why it's on real farms out there like yours, and on our core sites we are going to measure quite a bit of stuff, and as well as getting those genomic stuff and sort of relate them through their first couple of calves and just see how that all shapes up. Obviously, as you said, we've done a bit of scoring as well, things that we can assess that, and we've done this in the sheep game as well, rather than have that definitive day where we go and say, right, you're in, you're out. We like to gather information and then sort of do that culling, this will make some people cringe, no doubt, but do that culling on a spreadsheet, because if you have scored the phenotype as well as any measured data or any sort of production traits, you can actually line all them up and put the line where you need it to be. And I think that's where, with the genomics and some measurement stuff, we hope to help make that decision a little bit more rigor around that sort of final decision of who goes where.
That's right. And I mean, you talk to any grain trader out there, they sit in an office in Sydney or Melbourne or Perth. They trade millions of tons of grain off the back of a sample. They don't touch every kernel. And it's, for those that say you can't pick your livestock on data. Well, we all like to look at them, but maybe you're just not capturing enough data to express every trait you want in that animal. But there's an art and a science to it. And at the end of the day, especially if you're putting them in a market, the buyer's going to see the progeny, and it does help if they look nice. Does help us. We like to be proud of what we produce as well, but they've got to be able to do both. And objectivity is very valuable.
Awesome, mate. Thank you. Look forward to more chats, and thanks very much for coming on and talking us through the property and your the PDS we're running there.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ferg.
Thanks for listening, and thanks again to our 3 fantastic sponsors. Heinegger, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Allflex Livestock Intelligence, part of MSD Animal Health, offer extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. ProWay Livestock Equipment offer turnkey solutions from design through to professional installation and specialise in facilities that are tailored to your specific operation for all livestock species. We thank these 3 great companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.